must-see TV.
Next, it's an all-new must-see TV, and you gotta see what Kramer's barber did to Jerry.
Look at him. He's grotesque.
A must-see haircut. And then Frasier in commercials.
These promos are easy money.
The money is irrelevant. It's a question of integrity.
Hello?
All-new must-see TV, NBC tonight.
Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Wednesday, July 15th, 2026. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. On today's episode, we are resuming our months-long NBC Centennial retrospective series. This month, we're taking a long look back at the origins and the legacy of the famous must-see TV network branding campaign that defined NBC's dominance for most of the 1990s. That was a vintage tune-in TV and radio spot that you heard in the cold open. It was tub-thumping NBC's Thursday night tentpoles for the night of November 11th, 1993. Today, we'll look back and we'll look ahead with Jennifer Storms, NBC Universal's Chief Marketing Officer for television and streaming. Storms has inherited the legacy of must-see TV, and she has a lot of ideas on how that sturdy foundation is being used to reach a new generation of multi-platform viewers today. But before we get to all of that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. Is Lionsgate in play? Big European production companies Banijay and Media One are teaming in an effort to acquire the studio that is home to the John Wick franchise and most recently hugely successful Michael Jackson biopic. Both Media One and Banijay have been highly acquisitive in the last couple of years. As Variety has been reporting for more than a year, the Europeans see great opportunity in Hollywood's disruption. More to come on this. The FCC confirmed this morning what everybody in television already knew, that it is in the process of evaluating its long-standing rule that limits the number of TV stations that a single company or individual can own. This is something that TV station owners have pushed for a long time. Removing this rule, known as the national ownership cap, would clear the way for Nexstar and Tegna to merge. Station owners say it's outmoded to limit their reach in a world of global streaming giants. Let the debates ensue. On Tuesday, the Writers Guild of America joined 12 state attorneys general in suing Paramount Skydance to block the merger with Warner Brothers Discovery. The WGA says flat out in its complaint, the deal will lead to lower pay for writers. Paramount Skydance has a different point of view on this question. The reviews are in for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Variety chief film critic Guy Lodge liked it very much, but it's not an unqualified rave. It is a good read. The Universal Pictures film opens on Friday. All of these stories and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. And now it's time for conversations with industry leaders about news and trends in show business. Jennifer Storms, Chief Marketing Officer for NBC Universal Television and Streaming, joins us to talk about the legacy of those three words, must-see TV. NBC was very early to understand the importance of branding as the TV landscape began to change in the 1990s with cable coming on strong. NBC leadership at that time knew they had to hone the focus to a certain select audience profile, and they went for the audience known a generation ago as yuppies, upscale urbanites that liked witty urbane comedies and envelope-pushing dramas. NBC and other broadcast networks had image campaigns before. NBC in the late 70s had its Proud as a Peacock jingle that was everywhere for a while, but the must-see TV effort was a much more elaborate branding message. It made its first appearance on NBC's air in August of 1993 as a slogan to promote the network's strong Thursday night lineup. The shows in order were Mad About You, Wings, Seinfeld, Frasier in its debut season, capped by LA Law at 10 p.m. This was the season before Friends and ER hit primetime like a meteor strike in the fall of 1994. By the end of the decade, NBC had mostly stopped using must-see TV on air. but the branding has certainly endured. In the intervening years, the must-see TV imprimatur has been applied to NBC's great Thursday lineups of the 1980s, anchored by Cheers and The Cosby Show, Family Ties, Hill Street Blues, and LA Law. NBC itself confused the issue in 2004 by celebrating on-air 20 years of must-see TV, which they tied to the 1984 premiere of The Cosby Show, a show that truly changed America. Now, Jennifer Storms joins me to look back and look ahead at how the legacy of smart branding influences how NBC Universal reaches audiences today. Jennifer Storms, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
We're in the midst of our NBC 100 celebration. We're very excited to partner with NBC. There are a lot of history buffs at Variety, myself included, so this has been absolutely a fun partnership to really look at a company that spans the history of electronic mass media. Of all the broadcast networks, NBC has the strongest legacy of embracing marketing as a vehicle, not just to promote this show or this night, but truly like as a brand promise. And the must-see TV era was a moment in time that we look back on now and just think about, wow, that was a level of dominance in the marketplace. It really was a moment in time that won't come back. In your role as Chief Marketing Officer for television and streaming, what is that legacy of must-see TV? The legacy of a really strong campaigns about a certain type of show, a certain type of feel and vibe. What does that mean to NBC Universal of today?
When you look back at must-see TV over 30 years ago, it wasn't a slogan, it was a promise. And it was a promise to consumers. At the same time, it cemented NBC's reputation as really the network that was going to define appointment viewing. And how do we shape generations of shared entertainment moments back then, but also to come? So we had, as you described it, we branded the night, not just the shows, which turned a schedule into a cultural ritual. And we built a bit of a social contract with consumers, and it became that original water cooler moment. And so it did something incredible for us that we carry today, and not just branding the night, but we've evolved it as a company and across now the depth and breadth of the company to be about the emotion, the feeling, the experience. So that first, we very much have taken forward to today and continue in the future on how do we build on that kernel and that nugget and what it created and just continue to make it even bigger and more relevant.
Thanks to YouTube, I looked at an array of must-see TV promos, and today we would call them short-form content. They're entertaining. The thing that people love is seeing casts from different shows interacting. There's a lot of that. Jerry Seinfeld was incredibly game to do things, and it's really a fun legacy. As you've been doing the NBC 100 project, have you had the occasion to look back at some of that campaign and sort of the elements there that made it so buzzy in the moment?
It's part of what we've been building all year for NBC 100 and pulsing into those various pieces. But I think the nostalgia of all of it is the power, but it set the template for appointment viewing. The container has changed, but sort of the human need for shared cultural moments has not. So what was a night and a moment now has become, how do you actually reach across? The recent legendary February that we just had is an example of the evolution, because we had 3 distinct sporting events and all sorts of entertainment content and launches at the same time, but sort of wrapping that entire month in legendary February. The difference that NBC brought was the feeling and the emotion and sort of the consumer value proposition. It was different than just putting a bunch of stuff together in a schedule and it was all really great and powerful shows. It was about actually building something that was more to the consumers and became a very repeatable habit for people, which is now what we're seeing. Legendary February became a repeatable nightly routine of everyone going home at night to see Legendary February, what's on. And so I think that's what we're trying to do, is continue to turn these moments into destinations and identities that really are meaningful, than more than just that piece of content.
Mm-hmm. It is more challenging now when you have to galvanize people across different platforms, different ways to watch. You have the Olympics, you have those big franchises that lend themselves to the kind of elaborate campaign. You're not just trying to get people to one premiere. When you set your sights on a big campaign like an Olympics 2028, where do you even begin to scope out the parameters of what you're going to say and how you're going to talk to consumers, especially now where it's harder to reach them?
That's right. A really important question. I think one of the key components to our success in doing this in many ways is we start very early. We stay incredibly aligned as an organization. And at the end of the day, one of the beauties of Legendary February was a very simple, repeatable message, both internally for our own company, but also externally for consumers, and trying not to make it too difficult. So many opportunities for people to do with their time, things to do with their time. There's still only 24 hours in a day, but every day more things get added that you can do with it. And so that ability for us to just be very clear and concise was key. And to your point, in the 90s, we owned Thursday. But I would say in 2026 and beyond, our company is orchestrating significance across every screen every day and very clearly choreographing how we can help consumers not only find what they're looking for, but go deeper, sort of like what Thursday brought for them. They wanted to get more out of it. How do we take their experience with Love Island right now, or their experience with something else, the World Cup, and provide them with other content that still retains that must-see TV, sort of the elements and legacy that was very much built.
Back in the 90s, in the peak of must-see TV, the industry had a laser focus on the 18 to 49 demo. Maybe the 25 to 54, but really it was a fairly narrow target, and must-see TV definitely, that all coalesced around the focus on those key demographics. Of course, there's many more metrics now today. The marketing funnel is very big. Is it more challenging, especially with something like an Olympics or a big sporting event where you really do want to cast a Big Ten? Is it more challenging to reach a broad audience with the marketing message?
I think that's where we're extremely fortunate that we sit at a flywheel company with many different products and platforms that are reaching across different demographics and all across America. And so if the beauty of what we can do across the company with Symphony and galvanizing all of our content, all of our strategy, all of our firepower, and especially all of our marketing is really that unique ability to reach a broad audience, but still going into it in a very authentic and bespoke manner. So something like the Olympics, what you see advertised and promoted on Bravo is very different than what you see advertised, promoted on NBC, or advertised and promoted in news or on Peacock or in Telemundo. And so that's where it's a great opportunity, like I was saying, for us as a company to choreograph and take advantage of it with all the various platforms. And how do we become that chief architect of the consumer experience? And it makes our jobs so much fun to try to bring content to life in a really relevant way, using that bespoke nature of each of these platforms and products. And it becomes very fun creatively of how do you take a piece of content and then make sure that it works on each of these platforms. And that is probably one of the most fun things that we do today.
Let me close, Jenny, by asking you, you probably anticipated this. Let me ask if you have a favorite one or two must-see TV shows. I remember absolutely loving Thursday nights, and I remember watching Cheers and Family Ties.
Similarly, growing up, we were definitely an NBC family. And to your point, having it on Thursdays was a ritual. Probably more impactful for me were in the 90s with Friends, because I felt like I was in the same life stage as a lot of what they were doing. Younger people living on their own, struggling with relationships and work. And I fast forward to today, and I think about Love Island today. And I am watching such similar things happen as when I was with Friends in the 90s and watching. I'm seeing my nieces and even women my age, and this is what they're doing. They are rushing back to the homes and to their devices because they want to all be together to experience this at the same time. And so I think not just Love Island, but Sunday Night Football and other programming, whether it's entertainment, sports, films, we are continuing to fulfill that promise to consumers that we made over 30 years ago. And it's important for us to do it now and do it in the future and do it even better than ever.
It's a tall order, but based on the recent history, I would say that you guys are excelling and making the must-see TV era of NBC marketing and branding very proud. Jennifer, thank you so much. Appreciate your time and all of your thoughts on this very fascinating subject.
Great to chat with you, Cynthia.
See why we're
NBC proud as a peacock.
As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. D23 is coming August 14th through 16th at the Anaheim Convention Center. Panels aplenty and other good stuff will be served up at Disney's semi-annual fan convention. How could we not send a big team to the happiest place on Earth? Do not miss my colleague Jordan Moreau's profile of prolific comic book writer Tom King. It's a great read about one of the purveyors of source material for Hollywood as the big San Diego Comic-Con event approaches next week. True Crime on the Gridiron, coming on July 27th to ID, is Game Day Murders, a 6-episode series revisiting notorious sports-related slayings. It hails from executive producer Shaquille O'Neal. We love to hear from our listeners, so please send thoughts, gripes, and other feedback about Daily Variety to podcasts@variety.com. Before we go, congrats to Shannon Olivas. She's been named Head of Communications and Publicity for Tubi. Olivas joins Fox Corporation's ad-supported streamer after holding a range of communications and PR posts for Netflix, DreamWorks Animation, Skydance Media, and others. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton. Stick, snicks, hick, picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Daily Variety.